this evening. Alrighty, and he is the Vice President of Real Estate and Acquisitions. Mr. Ron, he is our Manager of Property Maintenance. Miss Danisha, she is our Home Buyer and Relations Manager. Miss Latasha, she is our in-house counsel and compliance director. And of course, Madam President, our CEO, Miss Krista Stoneham, who is going to be co-hosting tonight's presentation with me. So I wanted to go ahead and thank them for joining. Also, I'm still learning some of the board members, but I do want to thank the board for being here. I do know Mr. Matt Zeiss is a part of the board, so thank you for being here. Also, Mr. Saeed, he's also a new member, so thank you also for being here too tonight. So yes, want to give that shout out to everyone. Alrighty, so a little bit of an introduction of myself. My name is Jamila Hunter. I am a nurturer, an educator, and a leader. I am also in divine partnership and alignment with Houston Land Bank as their community engagement relations manager. A little bit about my backstory here. I've spent just shy of a decade of my time devoted to serving the food desert communities within South Dallas. And while being a part of that, I realized I needed to further my education and go back and broaden my reach. So I do hold a master's degree in community development, and I received it from the illustrious Prairie View A&M University. I'm so very proud of my school. I was under the guidance and leadership of Director Courtney Rose, Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas, and Mr. Kevin Rouse, and so absolutely loved it. And additionally, not only do I love working in the food sector and talking about food accessibility, I also love working in the conversation of equitable housing and affordable housing for more than deserving families. So I'm so very happy to be in partnership with Houston Land Bank and to be presenting the Neighborhood Advisory Committee program with you all tonight. So just to kind of give you a lay of the land, how tonight's going to go, I'm going to have Madam President, Ms. Krista Stoneham. She's going to start us off and talk about basically the history of Houston Land Bank and where we started and where we're at now. And then afterwards, she'll politely pass the baton to me, and I'm going to delve into the actual Neighborhood Advisory Committee and get into the nuts and bolts about that. So just kind of go over today's agenda. We're going to be talking about the introduction of Houston Land Bank, as I just stated, our core values, introduction of NAC, and then the next steps within NAC as well. So without further ado, I will surrender the floor to Ms. Krista Stoneham. And if you have any questions, I do ask for you to please hold them towards the end. We will give you the floor to ask any questions or present any concerns. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jamila, and thank you again to the team for joining, for the board chair, Mr. Zeiss, and I also want to acknowledge Nick Ferran, who is one of our advisory board members as well. But most importantly, you, the community members, are really excited to kick this off with you all. I see some familiar faces and names here, and I am the CEO and president of the Houston Land Bank. Before I get into the presentation, Jamila, can you expand the PowerPoint so it can expand a little bit bigger? In the top right, there should be the present button. There we go. There we go. Thank you so much. So if you go to the next slide, I think it would be helpful to talk about a little bit of the history of the Houston Land Bank in the case you're not familiar, because I think knowing where we were, where we are, and more importantly, where we're going with you all is really critical when it comes to comprehensive community development. So the Houston Land Bank began as a program called LARA, L-A-R-A, which stood for the Land Assemblage Redevelopment Authority. It was piloted back in 1999 under the city of Houston in order for the Housing and Community Development Department to go and acquire tax delinquent properties and put them onto the tax roll and constructing affordable housing in order to reactivate those properties, reactivate those uses, and of course, bring affordable housing to the city. It started with two specific neighborhoods at the time, which were 5th Ward and 3rd Ward. And over time, the program really expanded into an organization. Those that have been here for several years may remember some of the LORA program, but it also was influenced and impacted by additional programs such as Houston Hope. That's when the program really started expanding more, when the city started directing the organization to focus on these neighborhoods in order to increase the impact. And in 2018, the city decided that we really needed more dedicated oversight. It was a program that was administered by awesome staff, but they had additional opportunities and other responsibilities within their scope. And they said, we really need to have a dedicated organization, a dedicated board, and really amplify the impact of bringing community development solutions to Houston. And that's when the Houston Land Bank was formed in 2018. Now we still have some of those original properties back from the LORA days, and we still do work to build affordable housing solutions. In the LORA days, we used to sell the lots for $1 to builders with the contingency that they build affordable housing. We do not sell them for $1 anymore, but we do still construct affordable housing solutions throughout the city and sell them below market rate in partnership with our builders. But we have expanded our impact. In 2020, we were able to construct about 20 homes. In 2021, we constructed 40. And in 2022, we're on track to, I believe, exceed over 100. So over time, as the organization has sustained, we've been doubling the numbers of the impact of what's needed for the organization and, of course, for our city. If you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see some of the areas where we've impacted. Acres Home, Independence Heights, Setagast, Trinity Gardens near Northside, 5th Ward, Magnolia Park, 3rd Ward, and Sunnyside. And this has all been in collaboration, of course, with our builders, but we also do have a separate program with the city of Houston. We work exclusively with income eligible residents, which means that we sell our homes to either what's 80% or below of the AMI. AMI stands for Area Median Income, or for 120% below the AMI. So basically, we do look at the income eligibility of who purchases the home to make sure that we are impacting families who need them most. The next slide shows a little bit more about those two different programs. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We have two different programs of how we activate our properties. One is what we call the traditional home buyer program, which is a little bit what I spoke about previously, where we sell our lots to our builders. We don't sell them for $1, but we do sell them below market rate so they can go and build affordable housing for Houston. They typically work with the 120% and below AMI, as I previously explained. And then we have a separate program that's called the New Home Development Program. And this one is in partnership with the city of Houston's housing department. Basically, it's our properties, but the housing department secures their own builders. They construct their homes and we sell them on their behalf. So in a sense, we're their realtor, where we go off and we sell the properties. Some of those information is on the website, but those are the two different avenues of how we have impacted affordable housing in Houston. But as we've been reflecting on where we're going next, you see that we've been increasing our numbers on a yearly basis. The next slide is going to show really what our guiding principles have been to make sure that when we're building affordable housing solutions in these communities, that the community is a part of that solution as well. We have an acronym that we refer to as TOES. If you go back, there we go. And our TOES are our guiding principles in order to guide us when it comes to the projects, programs, and policies that we steward within the organization. The T stands for transparency. It's very important to me and all the overall organization, the board, to make sure that we're providing opportunities for public participation, and we're publicly sharing our needs, our accomplishments, our impact with Houston and beyond. Ownership is saying that we're going to take ownership of the work that we do. We want to make sure that we're monitoring and measuring the impact to make sure that we are outlining milestones. Jamila spoke a little bit about one of our newest staff members, Saeed, who is our data analyst. He has over a decade of experience tracking impact, and I'm looking forward to working with him to identify further opportunities and really just accomplishments of how we are being equitable in our approach. We intentionally work with small businesses. Most of them are MWBE certified when it comes to our builders. And we also focus on LMI communities. Now, LMI stands for low to moderate income areas, but I call them communities of opportunity because most of these, well, all of these communities that we impacted are thriving. They just need more intentionality and they need some stewardship in order to align with the needs of the community, which is why we invited you all here today to be a part of our neighborhood advisory committee. I'm going to pass the baton back to Jamila in order to explain a little bit more about this committee and what we're asking of you in terms of your role and how we can collaborate together to bring more comprehensive solutions for our city.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kristen Stoneham, for that. My apologies with the sliding of the presentation. The slides and the arrows were sticking, but anyways, here we are. Yes, so as you stated, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty and the overview as to what the Neighborhood Advisory Committee consists of. And essentially, this is an opportunity, an organization or a program where we have our super neighborhood representatives from our respective areas to share in and tell us what exactly they're wanting within their communities when it comes to home infrastructure. And so we want to hear about your values, we want to hear about your concerns, and most of all, we definitely want to hear your ideas. So that's the NAC overall. And right here, we do have a map that just highlights some of the areas to which we are in ownership of. It's an aerial view of it, and I thought it would be good for visual aid. So that is the NAC. All right, so let's talk about our role and within NAC here, and this will help us manage our expectations and the expected outcome. So in this role, we are wanting for you to assist in the design appropriateness grading of within the traditional home program that was just covered just a moment ago with Ms. Krista Stoneham. And so that's one of the roles, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment and get more in details. The second would be provide guidance to the public engagement approach. So when I introduced myself a little bit earlier, I did state that a lot of my work was held in South Dallas, right? And so I'm brand new to Houston. I've been here for a full week. On a side note, I am trying to get acclimated to Houston heat. I'm quickly realizing that 92 degrees in DFW is not the same in Houston. So please pray for me because the humidity is disrespectful. So I'm struggling, but nonetheless, I am new to the area. And so I am going to be leaning on you beautiful, rich leaders within these super neighborhood communities to bring in ideas as to what type of programs will work best for your demographic and for your area, right? So a program in Sunnyside may not go over as successfully in Acres Home. So that's a little bit of an example as to what we'll be calling in for. And the last point here within the NAC role would be that of assisting in the outreach and the Houston Land Bank programs, projects, and events and updates. So just more so outlining my original point made beforehand. So that's the expected outline of the position or being a part of the program. Alrighty, so let's talk about the development process here and how this works. And so basically, there is a window of time in which we have lots available and we have builders place bids on, right? So this is the entire process of how we get to the actual, you all reviewing the floor plans and of the homes and casting in your votes. So we have lots that are available and the bidding window opens. And then from there, the builders present their proposals and their bids and all the accompanying appropriate paperwork that's requested. Houston Land Bank staff will review that content, and then from there, we will present to you all within the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, the floor plans and everything that they presented for the area. Then from there, we get your viewpoints, you cast your votes, you share what you think. We provide that information to the board committee, and they review it. And then finally, the board will finalize an action on the overall process. And so it's important to note that Houston Land Bank will attempt to update and incorporate the feedback of the community. However, the Houston Land Bank Neighborhood Advisory Committee is not the sole decision maker for projects and developments. So we really wanted to make sure that was clear, that there's so many different working components in the final decision. Alrighty, so in this slide, previously, we did see an equation of what the traditional home buyer program looked like. At the original slide, it showed that it was Houston Land Bank plus builders equals a home. But we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that this is a bit different because the community is actually involved in this process. So Houston Land Bank plus the builders plus community members like the NAC equals a new home. So you all will be governing and be allotted 15 out of the 50 points for the floor plans that will be presented to you all for review. And so on the right-hand side of the screen, just to kind of break down further the judging criteria, you all will be judging for far as like the floor plans and materials, that's 0 to 5 points, community engagement and need, and then equitable housing practices. So in a nutshell, what this means, scale. So how does the house look to you? How do you feel when you look at the house? That's the first thing you'll be grading upon. Community engagement and needs. So if your area and the demographics and family members who live there, let's say the builders provide a house that has a 2-bedroom and 1-bath model, but you all are needing a 2-story home with 4 bedrooms and maybe 2 baths and a 2-car garage, whatever that is, then you're able to grade on whatever's presented to you all and say that's not going to work for us, or that does meet the needs of the people within our neighborhoods. And so we would hear from you all with that grading point. And then the equitable housing, that's more so a thing of does it promote the qualities? Does it make sense? Does a house make sense in the area? Does it fit the other standing homes? Does it stand out in a negative way? Just does it fit the style and function of the homes that are already existing in the area? So that's a little bit of an overview there of how the NAC is incorporated and comes out of the traditional home buyer program. Alrighty, so let's talk about what's next. So the 7th round of the floor plans for the newly constructed homes will be available for review in mid to late June. That's the first thing we want to give notice to you all. The second point would be NAC members will cast their votes using the provided link. So when we get closer to that stage, you will be having a link. And just really quickly to the right-hand side of the screen, there is a screenshot of what it will look like far as casting your votes online with the application. It's very straightforward and user-friendly, very simple interface. So I don't expect anyone to have any issues when it comes time to cast your votes. And the last point I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that we will be holding our monthly meetings for NAC every Monday, every 3rd Monday of the month. However, next month in June, Juneteenth actually falls on a Sunday, so we have that following Monday reserved. So tentatively, our next meeting will be that of Monday, June 27th. And that concludes our presentation for tonight. So I will now open the floor to any questions, comments, and concerns. And just thank you so much for listening and being a part of the conversation. Are there any questions?
This is Joetta Stevenson. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Hi. My question is, do you have an estimated number of properties that you guys own, say within my community, within 5th Ward? How many properties are we talking about? And also, are the properties that you all own, are they lots, or are they, say, homes that are old or that you just purchased it?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you so much, Mrs. Stevenson. I'm actually going to go ahead and pass that over to our CEO. Ms. Krista, do you mind answering that?
Yeah, no problem. And how you doing, Ms. Stevenson?
Hi.
Cumulatively, we have maybe almost 500 lots dispersed amongst the city. In Fifth Ward, my rough estimate is maybe around 15 lots. Now, I will say that all of our properties are vacant. Now, if there is a potential opportunity to acquire something that is, deteriorated or dilapidated, that does align with our mission, but that would still have to go to my board for approval. But currently, all that we have is vacant properties.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, this is Sandra Hines. I want to jump to one of the last things that you said. I had 2 questions, but the voting being done, can it be done by phone?
It can be done by phone. It's basically a website that you can insert on any smartphone or of course on a computer. You just insert, I believe it's 8 different digits that we would provide to you, and then it has an online polling system. Now, I will say that we were considering potentially having this meeting in person in the case there needed to be some support, if you guys are open to that. But I will defer to the committee on your comfortability. But it is a very simple system that can be used on your phone.
And the second question is, who determines the height or the enormity of the homes being built in the communities? Because it just seems to me that they would try to continue to create homes that look like the homes that are already there, like moderate homes for families. But there are gargantuan houses being built, and the neighborhood kind of looked distorted. And that was the last one I had.
I understand. In terms of the height, that is the builder's discretion. They do provide their own floor plans. We provide general guidelines in terms of what the maximum sales price is, for example, but in terms of the specifics, in terms of, it should be a wood or brick wall, we do not determine those details. But I will say that some of the plans that I've seen, at least in my tenure, I have not seen a floor plan more than 2 stories. I've mostly seen single story homes because they do try to align with the neighborhood characteristics. But those are the things that we will be discussing as a committee. We will show you the elevations, of course, the floor plans, and that's what the discussion will be at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, in line, this is Alicia with Third Ward. In line with the previous question, when we get like floor plans and information, is our goal to make decisions independently? Are we taking it back to our super neighborhood group for more community engagement and then coming back with the feedback? Like, how do you envision that working as far as really engaging our communities?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I would think right now, do you have a running idea as to what your neighborhood concerns are when it comes to housing? Do you have a working knowledge? So we would trust that when it does come to the time of reviewing the floor plans, that you would already have that in mind so you can make that informative decision when casting your votes. But if in the event you would like to go back to your community and discuss it further, I don't see that being an issue of us maybe giving some more time before casting your vote. And I trust that Ms. Krista Stoneham could correct me if I'm.
I think we can take into consideration when we give you the packet of plans to give you ample time to, digest and review. But it would be your sole representation for the community when you come to the meeting. But we would give you time in advance to review it. And if you wanted to present it to the super neighborhood, I welcome that. So we'll definitely keep that in consideration in our timeline of when we give you the materials, and obviously providing those materials to you with enough time before June 27th.
Thank you. My next question is, and I don't know if this is something you guys even address or not when you're doing your selection process, but one of the problems that, of course, we have in Third Ward is that builders that are building dump trash on some of the other vacant lots. And then, you know, residents are kind of left with that kind of mess. Is there any process that you guys include that addresses like builders not dumping, being respectful and aware of the community as well?
So we do have a dedicated staff member. I don't think he was able to join today, but his name is Ron Butler, who goes out and he knows all these properties like the back of his hand. He definitely reviews our properties to make sure that if there's illegal dumping that is being cleaned up and taken care of. We absolutely believe in being a good neighbor. Now, if it's someone else's property, then that's a little bit more of a challenge. Now, we do go out and physically also look at the construction process for the builders who are constructing on our lots as well. So of course, if we saw something that they were doing, we would absolutely contact them since they are representing us. They're our partner, but it is a little challenging to deal with properties that are not under our ownership.
And my last question, I know I have a lot.
That's what it's here for.
My last question is, I know this process is towards the home buyer program. At any time, are you doing anything as far as like storefronts or retail spaces or economic development is concerned?
I hope to expand into economic development and mixed use properties as we continue to expand our mission. Definitely our mission really is to address the needs of the community, and that can be interpreted in several ways. Right now, our priority is affordable housing, and especially since that's within our scope. But I do see with the nods of my board chair that we welcome the expansion into commercial if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, I just want to tack onto that too. I do hope to do that as well at some point, but I want to get really good at this, or make this organization really well oiled and well machined. And Krista is contributing to that daily, and the staff as well. But I want us to get really good at building affordable housing, and then start expanding from there. Because I want to make sure that that is a habit for us, and where we're satisfying that need before we start looking at other things. But again, like Krista said, if the opportunity presents itself and we can't, it's real estate. It isn't always available when you want it. If the opportunity is there, then we will try to jump on it if we can.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I have one more question. This is my last one, I promise.
You're fine.
As far as once the homes are built, and if you don't have an answer for this, that's perfectly fine. As far as once the houses are built and then you have residents that are interested in purchasing the house, is there a specific process? Do the residents have access to that in advance so that they can know? So if there's third ward residents that specifically want or are interested in homes that are being built in third ward, how would they go about navigating that?
So that is something that we're working on streamlining with our builders, because they're the ones that sell the homes on their own behalf. But we do welcome the opportunity to help promote that, to directly contact the builder. Right now we have our list on the website, but we are working through some redesign to make that more visible and to help celebrate the finished product. So I hear you on that, and that is something that I do want to help streamline and just connect better on when they are available to sale. Then how can we just promote them together?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Neal. I do appreciate your questions. Shows you were engaged. So are there any other questions for tonight's gathering?
I have one more question, and it might be just, I just simply can't think of the numbers right off the top of my head. So if it sounds silly, so be it. About what type of a down payment are you all offering for those that are at, you're saying that anyone purchasing these homes have to be at 80% AMI, but what type of, in light of everything escalating in price, be it a loaf of bread all the way up to housing, what type of about down payment are you now offering, or has that changed, or what? What are you offering, and are you considering maybe whatever you're offering, if it's still at the same level it was at 2 years ago, maybe that might not be enough.
So currently, we do not offer down payment assistance, but I do want to clarify. So for the program, which was the new home development program, which was the 80% and below, that's the one in partnership with the housing department. And they do typically align their down payment assistance program with the homes that are being sold as well. Now, I will say that if, of course, a buyer is eligible for any program, whether it's the cities, whether it's the state, I believe they have one. I know that I believe even some private institutions and banks have some as well. Then there can be alignment, but I will also welcome our team lead for the new home development program, Ms. Allison, to further elaborate if she would like to add any value as well.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Ms. Stevenson, to answer your question, as Krista was stating, we have two programs. One is that traditional builder program, and the other one is our new home development program. In the new home development program is the 80% area median income. In that particular program, that's where, of course, the city procures their own builder, and we are used somewhat as a conduit to get it out to the public. That program has a $50,000 down payment assistance, and it can be stacked on top of other incentives that the buyer can find through maybe their lender or another nonprofit. In the other program, in the one that you guys will be working with solely, the traditional home buyer program, those houses will give the buyer can work toward or apply for GLOW funds up to $30,000. In that program, again, that's not the first one I talked about where it's the 80% AMI. This is the other one where they're coming in at 120% AMI. And instead of the $50,000 in down payment assistance to meet the need, in this program, they're allotted up to $30,000. It is separate from, but it can be there. And then that same buyer can go and find additional funds through banks, whoever their mortgage is going to be through, or through another entity like a nonprofit. Right now, there is plenty of money out there. It is unbelievable how much assistance is out there for that 120 or that 80% AMI buyer through their banks. So they just have to look around, or they can call our office and we can try and help them find some money. Does that kind of answer the question for you?
Yes, pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay, but we are always, our phones are, it's not a lot of us, but we do a lot of work. So if you call our office, we will promise to get an answer for you. For sure.
Thank you.
You're
I also
welcome.
want to acknowledge Ms. Neal. Yes, we will share the PowerPoint as well.
Yes, we have Miss Danielle Flanagan who raised her hand. Yes, ma'am.
Do the plans take into consideration some of the concerns that we have across this region, which are obviously flooding concerns and environmental justice concerns? Notably in Fifth Ward, it's spotted with brownfields, so contaminated land. We do have developers who have gone into these contaminated pieces of property and have built, and then the people that are living on these properties aren't aware that, for example, there's a toxic site directly underneath their condo. So that's just a concern because of the challenges that particularly Fifth Ward faces in portions of Cashmere Garden with a lot of properties that are contaminated.
So one thing we did not include in the presentation is we actually just launched a brownfields program in April. This is to address phase 1 and 2s. And if you're not familiar with those terms, that means phase 1 is looking into the title search and any evidence of contamination in terms of paperwork, right? Phase 2s means actually going out and testing the soil, testing for asbestos in the walls, et cetera. And that is something that we are looking into in terms of our own inventory, right? We are using some of this grant to share with other partners in alignment, but also we're making sure that our properties are clean and clear before we go out and give them to builders to construct affordable housing. So that's absolutely a priority for us as well. In terms of flooding, I will say I aspire to look for flood resilient housing types. We've had some preliminary conversations, but it's still too preliminary. But in terms of being in the flood zone, they do have to be in compliance with the city standards in terms of the heights requirements that they, well, I won't say it was all the way recent, but they did make changes for that in terms of the height requirements, whether you're in the 100-year or 500-year floodplain.
Awesome. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you so much for that question. Are there any other questions for tonight's gathering? I see something in the chat. Let me, okay. Okay, I'm very happy that you enjoyed the presentation, Ms. Neal. So make sure I got everyone's question here. All right, it looks like I did. So if there are any other questions, I will then end tonight's meeting. So I want to say thank you to everyone who came out and listened in on this wonderful information. This is a very progressive program and inclusive, which are some of the pillars that we stand on as an organization. So very happy for everyone to be here. We will be sending this out to this PowerPoint presentation. And in that, you will also have my email address and my contact information. So if ever you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me. We look forward to meeting with you all for our next meeting, tentative for June 27th, which is a Monday. And just thank you so much. So have a wonderful Monday. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.